Okay, so I'm going to screen share again this week, just because I think the main thing, obviously it's boots and bits, and the main thing is we're just going to do loads of like, tell me what this bit is basically, and make sure we know all of the bits. So let me find which one I want. Here we go. Okay. So, is that working? Is everyone seeing my screen? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the syllabus for this bit. So, does everyone know what I mean by the families of bits? Good. And quickly, can we run through what part of the, like, all the different places the bit might have an effect on the horse? So the different places that put pressure.
Pole pressure.
Pole pressure, yeah, very good.
The tongue on their tongue.
Tongue, yeah.
Corners of their mouth.
Corners of the mouth, very good. Anywhere else?
The roof of their mouth.
Can do, yeah. Some put pressure on the roof. You don't really want that, but it can do, yeah. Anywhere else?
Their cheek.
Yeah, so if you have like a fulmer cheek snaffle, it will put pressure on the cheek. Anything else inside the mouth?
The bars?
Yeah, the bars of the mouth. And then thinking about outside the box, so think of like a hackamore, where will that put pressure? Any ideas? So some bits will put pressure on their nose. So those are the main things you want to think about when you're thinking about bits, is where they're putting pressure. So you've got pole pressure, the nose pressure, tongue, corners of the mouth, bars. And those are the main ones you want to think about. And you want to be able to tell like what type of bit's going to put what pressure on, because you can then figure out how the horse is likely to react. What does it mean by inspect bits for soundness? Anyone?
Check like there aren't any sharp bits.
Yeah, so if your horse has been chewing it, it's not worn thin, it's not scraped at all. Basically, it's checking it for safety. It's not going to break, but also checking that it's like in a good condition, so that it's not got any sharp bits, and that can include if it's dirty, or anything like that. And then we'll do boots a bit later. So first family is Snaffle family. We're just going to have a look at the different like snaffle rings you can get, or like bit rings you can get. So who can tell me what the top one is called?
Isn't it just a loose ring?
Yeah, so that's loose ring. Next one.
Egg butt.
Egg butt. This is a bit of a weird one, but does anyone know?
D ring.
Yeah, D ring. This one. Hanging cheek, yeah. This one up here, top right.
Full cheek.
Full cheek. Full cheek. This one. This is a bit of a weird one. You don't really see it ever. Any ideas? Hang on. That's a half cheek. So it works similar to the full cheek, but just works on the bottom bit. And any thoughts on the bottom one, bottom right? Any ideas? So that's a fulmer. So the difference between a full cheek and a fulmer is that the fulmer has a loose ring and the full cheek's attached. Okay, so let's go. Emily, what is the effect of a loose ring? Like, why would you use a loose ring over another one?
Because it doesn't apply that much like pressure, and it's not that doesn't have too much pressure on the corners of their mouth because it can move.
Yeah, so because it moves, it's quite a soft choice. Any disadvantages of a loose ring?
Can it pinch?
Yeah, it can pinch, so you might want like the rubber protectors on the inside. Jess, what about an egg butt?
I'm not sure.
No worries. Annabelle, why might we use an egg butt?
It's fairly gentle, and it means it doesn't pinch on the side of their mouths.
Yeah.
And it can't really rotate though.
Yeah, which can be, depending on your horse. If you've got a horse that's quite fussy, you might actually want a more secure bit for it to go into. And normally people have their preference on which one they have. Why would you use a D-ring, Tara?
I'm not really sure.
No?
I don't know.
That's all right. Eva, do you know why you might use a D-ring?
Well, it's got the bars to make sure. I don't really know, but like it's got the bars like extending from the bit that goes into the mouth.
Yeah, you're on the right lines. Yeah, so it just gives a bit that little bit more security on the corner of the mouth, and also that bit.
And it doesn't like go in and out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Otti, what about the hanging cheek snaffle? Why might you use that?
Is it maybe like a bit more?
It's all right. Audrey, do you know?
No, I'm not sure.
No. Scarlett, any ideas?
Does it give a bit more of a like effect on their pole?
Yeah, very good. So there's a bit more pole pressure on a hanging cheek snaffle. It also helps a bit because it's got that bit up the side. It helps a little bit with straightness, but the main thing is that's that bit of leverage, because the cheek piece attaches higher up. It puts more pole pressure on. Neve, why would you use a full cheek snaffle?
Is it to stop to keep the bit more secure?
Yeah, it's to keep the bit more secure, and also if you've got a horse that head tilts, those little bobbles at the top and the bottom will just put pressure when they do, so it will just straighten them a little bit.
Okay.
You'd probably want to use a full cheek on a young horse, like a very young horse if you're training it, to help with steering as well. That's the other thing the full cheek does. Because it puts pressure on the side, it helps kind of turn them. Tegan, any idea on the half cheek snaffle?
No, not too sure.
That's all right. Anyone got any idea on the half cheek one?
Does it like do similar to the full cheek, just not like on the top?
Yeah, so it's similar, but just down the sides. Romilly, what about the Fulmer?
Is it again to like help with the steering, but is it like is it softer than the full cheek? I don't really know.
It's just a bit looser. You've got, because it's separate, there's that looser attachment to it. So yeah, but yeah, good. So yeah, just make sure you know all of those and what they're used for, basically. Okay, so having a look at some snaffles. Mia, can you tell me the name of that top left snaffle? What we'll do is we'll go down the left hand side, then the right hand side. So top left.
Not really sure.
Not sure. Okay, so first of all, look at the like the bit rings. Do you recognise them from the last page?
They were the second ones.
Yeah. Does anyone remember what those ones are called?
Full cheek.
Yeah, full cheek. So you want to have a look at full cheek and then look at the mouthpiece. So you want.
Is it the full cheek?
Yeah, so it's full cheek snaffle, and then think about whether it's straight bar, single jointed, double jointed, anything like that. So that would be a full cheek, single jointed snaffle. Okay, Emily, what about second down from the left?
Is it a loose ring snaffle with a French link?
Yeah, very good. So it's a loose ring French link snaffle. Okay, Jess, what about the next one down below that?
Is it a Dr. Bristol?
Yeah, and what's the bit rings?
Egg butt.
Yeah, so that's a Dr. Bristol. So who can tell me the difference between a Dr. Bristol and a French link?
Isn't the Dr. Bristol rectangular?
Yeah. So are they both, is the French linker allowed for dressage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is the Dr. Bristol?
No.
Yeah, so why is the Dr. Bristol not allowed?
Does it have more brakes and like strength to help with speed?
Yeah, it's stronger. Does anyone know what where in particular it puts pressure?
Oh.
Tongue?
Yeah, the tongue. So because of that straight bit, when you pull on the reins, it twists a little bit and puts pressure down on the tongue. Whereas the way the French link's shaped, it leaves room for the tongue. So out of those first three bits, which do we think is the nicest and which is the harshest?
Loose ring French link is probably the nicest.
Yeah, harshest?
The Dr. Bristol.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the first one we looked at? What action will that have on the horse?
And just be on the cheeks.
Yeah.
And like
Anywhere else? So it's
leave it
single
on the
joint.
bars.
Yeah. Because it's single jointed, is there a particular action it might have?
Has the nutcracker effect.
Yeah, the nutcracker action. So that's where, because it's single jointed, when you pull on the reins, it gets tighter. So it gets tighter on their tongue. So it's reasonably harsh, but not as harsh as the Dr. Bristol. Okay, so who did I get to? I have no idea. Annabelle, what's the next one down?
An egg butt with a straight bar.
Yeah, so just a straight bar. I don't know if you saw that. Mullen mouth. Do you know what I mean by what that means by mullen mouth?
No.
Does anyone know? So mullen mouth, when you get a straight bar, you can have a straight bar, or you have a straight bar that's kind of curved like that. So has everyone seen one of them?
Yeah.
Straight but with a slight curve. So that's called a mullen mouth. And they're shaped like that to give space for the tongue. So the straight bar kind of doesn't leave room for a tongue. The mullen mouth sits like over the tongue, so it's a little bit kinder. Okay, Tara, any ideas on that bottom one, bottom left?
Is it a full cheek?
It's quite a difficult one.
Sorry?
It's quite a difficult one.
Full cheek. I just call them roller ones, but
So that's actually it's a twisted wire one. It's not
Yeah.
very clever, but it's one you'd want to know. It's a very strong bit. How does it work?
is it the kind of bits on the side move whenever you kind of pull on the reins? They're not really.
I don't think they do. I can't see the pitch properly, but I think on the twisted wire one, it's just like a fixed bit of metal. But because it's kind of twisted, it's not like it has a lot of lumps and bumps. So does anyone have any thoughts on how that might work?
So would it put like more pressure because there's like little grooves it's more like spiky?
Yeah. So there's more pressure points just all over. And again, it's got the nutcracker action because it's single jointed. So that would be a pretty strong bit. Okay. Eva, what about the top right?
It'll be a D-ring rolling lumpy thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so a roller
Oh,
D-ring. So normally they're copper rollers, so you might call it copper roller. Some people call them cherry rollers. Single jointed, double jointed?
That looks single.
Yep, single jointed. So what type of horse would you use this bit on?
It's relatively strong. It's got the nutcracker action, but then it's got a bit of pressure on like the outside to like keep the bit in the mouth.
Yeah.
Maybe like a bit of a youngster. I don't really know.
Does anyone know what effect the rollers have?
Is it for a horse that plays with its bit?
It can be good for horses that play with a bit, but it's more for horses that grab hold of the bit. So you have horses that are strong in that they just like pull and pull and pull, but also horses that literally just get hold of the bit and then like they literally clamp down on it, and no matter what you do they can't feel it because it rolls around, they can't clamp down on it. So it works in a similar way to a Waterford, in that it's not a secure enough thing for them to get hold of. Okay, Otti, what about the second one down on the right?
Is it a loose ring straight bar?
Yeah, so that's just a straight bar. You can't see that, but it's made out of rubber. So how would that, like, what type of force would you use that on?
Well, it's not like very strong, but it's not got the like mullen mouth.
Yeah.
So like it's like maybe I'm not really sure, like because obviously the loose ring it's not very strong.
Yeah.
But it's also got the rubber bar.
Yeah, so it would, yeah, as you say, it's not a very strong one. It's probably one you'll use on a horse that's quite polite in the mouth and you perhaps actually want to make it.
Is this one? I don't know if you can see me on
It's
the
similar, yeah, it's basically the same. But do you know, quickly, while we're there, do you know what that mouthpiece is made of?
It's like not rubber, but it's really bendy. And
Does anyone know what the name of that?
Is it a name?
Yeah, nathe.
Yeah.
So nathe bit, we'll come on to that later, but yeah, so it's similar to that. Okay, Audrey, can you tell me what the next one down is?
Is it like a training bit?
Yeah, so explain.
So like the dangly bits would stop the horse like getting their tongue over the top of the...
Yeah, so it's partially because of that and partially to give them something to play with. So they're called keys, or it's a mouthing bit with keys. So this would be a typical bit that you would break a horse in with. So it's got the full cheeks to help with steering, and then it's got the keys for the horse to play with something, because it's weird for them to have a bit in their mouth. So it just gives them something to fiddle with without grabbing hold of the bit or chewing the bit. So yeah, that was really good. Scarlett, what about the next one down?
Is it an egg butt twist? I don't know.
Yeah, you're on the right line.
An egg butt of some sort.
Yeah, and what's the mouthpiece?
Is it a twist?
Yeah, how many joints? Yeah, single jointed, and they call it a swallow twist. You don't need to know that, but yeah, twisted. Wouldn't be allowed for dressage. It's quite similar to the other twisted mouthpiece we've seen. It's quite harsh in the mouth, but not so harsh outside the mouth. Okay, and finally, does anyone know what this awful looking bit at the bottom right is? No? So double twisted wire. So you can have these without the twisted bit, where it's kind of two bits in the mouth. And do you see how they've both got single joints, but they're offset? So they have kind of a double nutcracker action when you pull on the reins. So that's if you got a strong horse. I wouldn't really recommend a bit like that. But yeah, that is a bit you'd want to know. It's just a double twisted wire, and it's for quite a strong horse. It has a double nutcracker effect, so it's particularly harsh on the tongue. Okay. We'll have a look at some more bits. So some more basic ones this time. Neve, explain everything you can about the top left bit here, please.
So it's a single jointed D-ring snaffle.
Yep, and what material do we think the mouthpiece is?
Is it copper?
Yep. Why would you use a copper mouthpiece? Any ideas?
Is it because sometimes the horse doesn't like the taste of like stuff or something?
Yeah, so it's partly to do with taste, partly to do with temperature. It stays a bit warmer. But yeah, D-ring. And D-ring is more direct pressure for a quicker response. Okay, Tegan, can you say all you can about the second on the left, please?
It's a single jointed loose ring snaffle.
Yeah, and have you any idea what that mouthpiece is made of?
It's no,
it's quite hard.
I don't.
Anyone? Any ideas?
Is it the one with the
Retire.
blue when it?
Wait, what was that?
Is it the one with the
Retire.
blue on the metal?
It's, I can hear two different people. It's sweet iron. So it's kind of similar to the copper. It's just a little bit nicer. It can be more flavoured. It's not as cold. O-ring, they mean loose ring. This is American. And there we go. This explains in more detail what the different rings do. Okay, Romilly, explain as much as you can about the third one on the left.
It's a I've totally forgotten what it is. It's the one where it's got the I forgot what it's called.
That's all right.
Steering and like
Yeah.
And then it's got the single joint, which has an like effect. And I think it's just like the normal metal.
Do you know what the normal metal is?
Is it steel?
Yeah, stainless steel. And who can say what the cheek pieces are? Or what the
Cheek.
Full cheek.
Yeah, so full cheek. Lateral control, there we go. Mia, can you explain the top right as fully as possible, please?
Is it egg, butt rings, single jointed?
Yeah. Yeah, so egg butt, single jointed. There we go. And Emily, second down from the right.
Egg butt with straight bar. So
is it straight or what was the other one?
Give it an M? I don't know.
Let's begin with that. An M. Can anyone else remember?
Mullen mouth.
Mullen mouth. Yep. So mullen mouth. It's hard to see, but yeah, egg butt with a mullen mouth. And Jess, can you tell me about the bottom right one, please?
Is that a Waterford with D ring?
Yeah. So how does a Waterford work?
Because it's in like loads of little pieces, it stops the horse like clamping down and running away.
Yeah, getting hold of it basically. Perfect. While we're thinking about snaffles, if we look at these, what does the thickness of the bit, what effect does the thickness of the bit have on the horse? So if you've got a really thin, a thin bit, what's the
more pressure if you have thinner?
Yeah.
More pressure. If it's really thick, less pressure. Are there disadvantages for it being really thick?
But doesn't it get the horse more to like
grab?
Yeah. It also can just be too big for the horse's mouth. And they can actually not like big bits because it can be, so if you've got a horse with a very small mouth, you'll probably want a small bit. It also depends on the size of their tongue. So some horses have really big tongues, and they won't want too much in their mouth if they do. Okay, so we're going to carry on with ones we haven't looked at. I think most of these we have, so that's good. That's the twisted wire. Any of these that we haven't gone through? No, I don't think so. Perfect. So next family we want to think about is gags. Can anyone tell me the main pressure point of a gag? What makes a gag a gag?
Pole pressure.
Yeah, so it's gag bits or leverage bits, and it's the pole pressure. Again, describing in as much detail as possible. Tara, can you tell me what that top left one is?
Is it just a one ring gag with a French I've forgotten what the last bit of it was.
French link. It's not quite a French link. Do you see how let me get a French link.
Or is it one of these special, was it doctor something?
No, so where's that gone? So this one here, the French link here, do you see how it's got that pinch in the middle of the in the lozenge in the middle?
Yeah.
And the Dr. Bristol's just straight. So as well as that, you can have just a lozenge, which is just like a oval shape that doesn't really have a shape. So I'd say that's probably just a lozenge. Does anyone know what type of gag that is?
A Dutch gag.
Yeah, so Dutch gag, and it's loose ring, obviously. So you attach the cheek piece, that top ring, and then reins to either the middle ring or the bottom ring. With gags, what is the correct way of riding in them? Is it 1 rein, 2 reins, with a like D strap to connect the reins? What do you think? Any ideas?
Well, it's probably originally it's for a double. It's for a double like reins. But then if you wanted to use single reins, it's probably you would use a D ring to connect the single reins, but we just connect it because
yeah. So the most correct is to ride with 2 reins, to have one on the leverage bit and one on just the snaffle bit. But as you say, most people just ride with 1 rein. That's stupid. We'll ignore that middle one because it's quite similar to the bottom one. Eva, can you tell me about the top right one?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, it's a Waterford bit with its double ring gag.
Do you remember what the gag's called?
Dutch gag.
Yeah, Dutch gag. Ottie, what's the strongest bit that you can, like, what bit would you connect your rein to for the strongest effect?
The 3rd ring down.
Yeah, so the lower the ring, the more leverage. And it's also good to consider that these are all loose ring. Why are they loose ring?
Because the actual bit can move around. It's not fixed.
And because of the leverage action, the bit moves around as you pull on the reins. So yeah, another Dutch gag. Waterford. Audrey, what's the bottom left?
Is it a happy mouth? Like
Yeah. So single jointed, happy mouth, Dutch gag. Scarlett, can you tell me what the middle one is? They're both the same, but one's got the runners, one hasn't.
Is the bottom one the rope gag?
Yeah. Does anyone know what the proper name for them are?
Hanging cheese?
Cheltenham gag.
Is it a Cheltenham gag?
Yeah, Cheltenham. So that one is a Cheltenham gag. Who can explain how that one works?
My old pony used to have one. You can have like either rope or like leather, but the rope's more strong because it runs through the bit faster, and it's basically for more pull pressure.
Yeah, so it's instead of cheek pieces, so that bit of rope that you see is instead of cheek piece. And when you pull on the reins attached to that bottom bit down there, where I'm covering with the blue thing. And when you pull on the reins, it lifts the bit in the horse's mouth and also creates leverage. So that's quite a strong bit. Okay, and then another Dutch gag, just single jointed there. Perfect. Right. Let's go to Neve. Top left here, what's that?
Is that without the rope? Is it the Cheltenham gag, or does it have to have the rope to be?
Yeah, it's still a so those holes on the bit rings are where the rope would go. So that's why those holes are there. So yeah, that's a Cheltenham gag.
Yeah.
And what's in the mouthpiece?
I can't really.
Can anyone see what's the mouthpiece?
Is it a double jointed lozenge?
Yeah, so it's just double jointed lozenge. And who can tell me the difference between the top left and the middle left?
There's more of a bend.
Yeah, so there's more of a bend in the middle one. So what effect will that have?
Be harder on the corners of their mouth.
Harder on the corners of their mouth, but where will it be softer?
Tongue.
Yeah, softer on the tongue. What else is different here?
Top one's fixed.
Yeah, so egg butt versus loose ring. And there's one other big difference, I'd say.
Is it one thicker?
Yeah, so the top one's thicker. So out of those two bits, which would you say is the stronger one?
The top one.
Yeah, the top left would be stronger than the middle. Sorry, that's wrong. The middle one would be stronger than the top one, because it's thinner and it's loosering. Okay. Tegan, what about the bottom left one?
Is that at Cheltenham with full cheek?
Yeah. So helps with
And then
steering.
a double jointed lozenge.
Yeah. Romilly, what about top row, second from the left?
Is that a Tom Thumb?
Yeah. What's the mouthpiece?
Is it a lozenge?
Lozenge, yeah. So how does the Tom Thumb work?
It has more leverage.
Yeah, so you would have your rein on, if you're being completely correct, you'd have one rein on the middle ring and one rein on the bottom ring, but a lot of people ride just with the bottom ring, so there's that leverage. What's the effect of the small bit rings on the Tom Thumb?
So the leather can't move, so it's quite fixed, on the reins.
Yeah, so it's quite fixed. It doesn't go up and down in the mouth, it just pulls on the pole. So that's quite good for horses that can be fussy in the mouth but are also strong. That's just another Dutch gag. Mia, do you know what the third one down in the second row is? Does that make sense?
The one with the loose rings, the two loose rings on each side.
Hang on. This one.
Oh, is that the it's got a single link?
Yeah, does anyone know what that specific bit is called?
Is it an American gag?
Yeah, so that one's an American gag. So it's quite similar to the Tom Thumb, but because it's not got small, the bit can basically run up and down. Hang on. The bit runs up and down like this bit here. So it means that the bit moves up and down in the mouth as well as the leverage action. So yeah, that's an American gag. Got another Dutch gag. Can anyone tell me what this one is? How it works?
No idea.
No idea? So it's a double ring snaffle, and you attach the cheek pieces to the inside ring and the bit to the outside ring. So it puts less pressure on the corners of the mouth because the bit rings are out further because the cheek pieces are in closer, if that makes sense. It's a bit of a weird one. You'd probably not be massively asked on that one. Anyone got any ideas on that bottom one underneath the double ring one?
It's got the rope going through it like a Cheltenham.
Yeah, but do you think where does that rope, where does the pressure come if you pull on that rope?
It goes
behind it's on the chin.
Yeah, so that puts pressure behind the chin. So this is quite a new one. But yeah, so that's a lot of pressure behind the chin. There'll be a bit of leverage, and there's also the pressure from the single jointed there. That's another Tom Thumb at the top. Who can tell me what this one is?
It's like a hanging gag.
Yeah, hanging cheek gag, and it works with, you can put your reins on either of the loops depending on how much leverage you want. If the side bit is longer, does that make it harsher or softer?
Harsher.
Yeah, harsher because there's more leverage. Anyone got any ideas about that bottom right one?
Does it have a bomber mouthpiece, where it moves round?
I think it does. It's quite hard to see, but it does look like it does.
Has it got a curb chain?
Yeah, it has a curb. So those bits, this isn't a gag, that's a like a Pelham bit. but those are military bits. So do you see how the bit where your rein attaches like steps away? So these are quite old-fashioned bits, and they can be used for like horses pulling carriages, but your rein's attached to that bit that's like it pulls away, so the horse can't get hold of it or anything. So yeah, they are generally military bits. Okay. Pelhams. Can anyone tell me where the pressure points from a Pelham come?
Under the chin with the cover.
Under the chin.
Yeah, so it's Pelham bits or curbs basically. So you've got snaffle rein and curb rein. Can anyone tell me something that most people don't have on their Pelham anymore, but they should have on their Pelham, and where it attaches?
Is it roundings, like Pelham roundings?
No, but they're what you'd use if you wanted to just use.
D rings.
The what?
With like the D.
Those are the roundings.
Oh, okay.
So do you see those very small circles?
Yeah.
Do you know what attaches to them? These ones here. Do you know what attaches to them?
No.
No?
Is it like something that goes round their lips or something? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's a lip strap. So it's just a little bit of leather that attaches there and goes under their lip. Does anyone have any idea why?
Isn't it so that the curb chain doesn't get really tight and be quite painful if you pull the reins a bit too hard?
Not quite. So that's a like a protector, so you can get a sleeve or a coat to go over the curb chain that makes it a little less harsh. The lip strap is the chin strap is to stop the horse being able to get hold of the curb rein. So because the curb rein hangs lower, and when you're riding in a Pelham, you should mainly use your snaffle rein and just use your curb rein as and when's needed. So your curb rein should be a bit looser than your snaffle rein. So the chin strap stops them being able to get hold of the curb rein. So that's a really important one to know, especially because if you see a Pelham, like I googled Pelhams and I couldn't find, like I don't think I found any with a lip strap on, chin strap on even. So that's worth knowing. Okay. So we're in this photo, it's quite blurry, but we're just thinking about the mouthpiece. So that left hand mouthpiece, what's the effect of it? So is
that a single jointed?
Single jointed, and the shape of it means that when it's in the mouth, it's actually going to be quite circular, so there'll be space for the tongue. Does anyone know what that weird shape in the middle bit's called?
Is it so like the tongue doesn't go over the bit?
Is that one a port?
That's a port, yeah. So it's quite a difficult one. So a port like that, so that's quite a high port in my opinion. That puts pressure on the top of the horse's mouth, which I don't feel is that nice a way to train them. Because of the shape of it, it gives a little bit of space for the tongue, but not much. It would be hard for the horse to get its tongue over, but the main thing is it puts pressure on the top of their mouth. The one on the right is a lower port, so it's still got that port shape, but that's more space for the tongue than putting pressure on the top of their mouth.
How do you know if it's a port or a tongue groove?
Tongue grooves are more like all the way through. So do you see how this is like straight on the sides, and then quite clear up, along and down? Whereas like a tongue groove will just have more space throughout.
Okay.
So it will be like a more straight line than a sort of like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so thinking about that, Emily, can you tell me about the left hand bit?
So there isn't like a main ring unless it's behind the like cheek, and it's heavy, and it has a. It's not a tongue. Is it a tongue groove or is that the other one?
Anyone help her out?
Port.
Yeah, so it's got a low port, and as you say, it's only got the curb rein there, so it's quite a strong one. Pom thumb, because it's not got that top one. Fixed cheek, so you can get Pelhams that run up and down. This is a fixed cheek, and yeah, got the curb chain. Okay. Jess, what about the middle one?
It's single jointed, and is that a fixed bit on the side, or?
Yeah, so fixed
Yeah.
cheek. Annabelle, what about the one on the right?
It's a rubber straight bar.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, Pelham.
So, Tara, can you tell me which one of these is going to be the softest?
I think probably just the straight bar with the little rubber bit.
Yeah, definitely. Eva, what do you think is going to be the strongest?
The one with the high port and no middle ring.
Yeah, I agree, because you've not got that middle ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got more leverage, and although there's not the nutcracker action, you don't have the choice of that top ring. Okay. What about these bits? Can anyone tell me what these? So this is a type of curve bit. What are they called?
Are they Kimblewicks?
Yes, these are Kimblewicks. So Kimblewicks are D-rings with a curb. So they've got a tiny bit of leverage, but not much. You can attach the bit to that higher little gap or the lower little gap. They have the curb, so they work similar to the Pelham, but you only need one rein to ride them in, and they don't have as much pole pressure. Because you only ride them with one rein, you don't need the lip strap. So, Otti, can you describe that top left one?
Doesn't look like it's quite straight.
No? So do you remember what that's called?
So it's a rubber melon mouth.
Perfect, yeah.
And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, perfect. Audrey, what about the middle top one?
Is it got a lozenge?
Yep, so Kimberwick with lozenge, they've called it something fancy. Anyone, Scarlett, or anyone that wants to, because it's quite a difficult one. What about that top right one?
The copper roller.
Yeah, so it's got a copper roller and just a singular one, so they can't get hold of it. That's more, I would say that one's more for a horse that wants to play with the bit, because they can roll the roller in the middle. So when there's just the singular one, doesn't put any nutcracker action. Neve, what about the bottom left?
Is that a high port?
Yeah, I would say that's a low port.
Okay.
High ports, if you see one in real, like high ports look quite hideous if you actually see them. They go like literally like all the way up there. So that's quite a low port. And Tegan, what about that right one?
Is it a single joint and then copper? It's got a bit of copper in it.
Yeah, copper rollers. So the difference between the bottom right and the top right is obviously there's multiple of them. So Romilly, which one is the harshest out of all of these, in your opinion? The strongest?
Probably the one with the low port, probably, or the copper roller one.
Yeah, so I would say probably the copper roller one. So this bottom right one would be the strongest, just because it's got the nutcracker action.
Yeah.
And then I would say the one with the low port. Which Mia is the softest on their mouth?
The melon mouth one.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so Hackamore bit. How does a Hackamore bit work? Yeah, so bitless, where does it put pressure?
On the nose.
Oh.
Nose, poll, and
chin.
Yeah. So your rein attaches to that bottom bit. cheek piece attached to the top. So when you pull on the reins, it all basically tightens. How severe is a hackamore?
Not very.
Not particularly.
Not very.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's
I
quite
would say
it's not severe at all on the mouth, but with
Yeah.
on
It puts
the
quite a lot of pressure on the nose. And
Yeah, so there's no pressure in the mouth, but it's actually one of the strongest bits you can get, because it literally just tightens everywhere when you pull on the reins, and there's so much leverage. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know if they still are, but they used to be banned in Pony Club. Why might you ride in a hackamore?
if your pony has mouth ulcers,
Yeah, so if your pony's got a cut mouth or a sore mouth or anything, you might just hack in a hackamore, but just be aware that they're very strong. There are ways you can adjust it, so you can put like fluffy bits on the front and the back, so it's not as strong. But it needs to be strong because you don't have a bit, so they need to know that you're there, basically. Double bridle. Can you remember why you would use a double bridle from last week?
more dressage
Like
and
refined.
transitions and
Yeah, so to refine and finesse, basically. So these are two, basically you have obviously the two bits. Can anyone tell me what you call the snaffle bit of a double bridle?
Is it a but it begins with B?
Yeah, it does. Go on, go for it.
Is it like a
No worries. So the top bit is called a
I
bradoon.
don't know.
So it's a bradoon.
Oh,
And the Pelham bit, does anyone know what that bit's called? No? So that's called the Weymouth. So you've got the bradoon and the Weymouth. So make sure you know what the different bits are. And yeah, so you have one rein attaching to the snaffle bridle, one attaching to the Pelham. You never want the bits to be too thick because it is obviously a lot for them to have in the mouth. Okay, so combination bits. Has anyone ever seen a combination bit? So this is a combination bit. Has anyone ever seen one before?
no.
Does anyone have any idea how they work, looking at the picture?
On the nose.
Yeah, so that this bit here that I'm drawing to now goes over their nose. This bit goes behind their chin. Reins attach here. Cheek pieces attach here. And then you always have the bit here. So yeah, you pull on the reins. It's quite soft on the mouth, so it's double jointed. Happy mouth, but you have the effect of a hackamore. So it tightens on their nose and behind their chin. So it's quite a severe bit. It works like a hackamore, but you have the turning. The difficulty with a hackamore is you can't turn as easily. These you can, because you have the bit there. But that's quite a severe, quite a strong bit. Okay. So we've touched on the nave mouthpiece earlier. Does anyone, Eva, maybe can you describe what the nave is and why you'd use it?
Generally for like a horse who has quite a sensitive mouth or just isn't very strong because it's rubber and it's a loose ring. And
yeah. So nave, it's quite a weird material. As you say, if you've got a horse that gets an easily cut mouth, you might want to use that. We've talked about stainless steel and copper. Talked about that. One on the left is sweet iron, rubber, top right. That's probably the softest bit you can get. And then a happy mouth there in the bottom right. Okay, so those are bits. Make sure you know all of your bits. You want to be able to, the main thing is, even if you can't name them, be able to say where it's going to put pressure and what it's going to do. So let's have a quick think about boots. Why do you use boots? Why would you use boots on a horse?
Protect their
legs.
Yeah, protect their legs. So what type of boots are these?
Brushing
boots.
Yeah, brushing boots. So what type of thing would you use brushing boots for?
Like every day.
Every day.
Yeah, everyday flat work hacking. They've just got that bit of more protection on the inside. Good ones, so they protect, as the name suggests, it's that brushing action. How do you make? We'll say that at the end. What type of boots are these?
Tendon.
Yeah, tendon. What type of thing would you use these for?
Jumping.
Yeah, in particular, show jumping. So as their name goes, they protect the tendons. So the back is hard, as you can see in the bottom right picture. They don't do anything on the front, and they just protect around the side. So yeah, protects the tendons, stops them striking into themselves or anything hitting the tendons. What about these boots?
Cross-country boots, they protect all around.
Yeah, cross-country boots, they protect all around, and you can see the little air holes. Why is it really important they're quite well ventilated?
Because they're going to have them on for like
quite a long time.
And they're going to sweat a lot.
Yeah, they're going to get hot. You want them to get the air through. You don't want the tendons to overheat. And so you want the air vents. It's really important when you're getting cross-country boots that you make sure they dry. They don't get too heavy if they get wet, because if you go through a water jump, you don't want them to be completely sodden. You can also see with the back boots, in like show jumping back boots are very small. Cross-country are completely the opposite, so they're actually quite long. That's just to protect the inside of their legs when they're jumping against each other and galloping as well. They don't want to catch themselves while they're galloping. These boots, yeah, why do you use overreach boots?
So if they're like that, if they like flip their heels together.
If they overreach with their back feet, they can pull a shoe off or something.
Yeah, so it's to stop them not just pulling a shoe off, but actually stepping into themselves and injuring themselves. Can anyone tell me the difference between the left one and the top right, other than rubber? One's rubber, one's not.
The top one, like a no turn one.
And yeah, the left one doesn't turn. The rubber one probably will. What are your thoughts on the bottom right one?
It looks like they're holding the shoes on, like going round the shoes.
Yeah, so they're a newer one. They're extraordinarily expensive, but because of the way they're secured, they don't spin at all. Does anyone know the danger of overreach boots?
If they're too long, trip over them, and if they're too short, then they can pull off the shoe.
Yeah, there's a danger of them being too long and stepping on them. So those bottom right ones stop that, because it literally just that hard bulb that covers the back of the foot where they're likely to overreach. Can anyone tell me how you'd fit just a normal boot? How do you know they're well fitting?
They cover everything. Like if it's a tendon boot, they cover the tendons and they're not too tight but not too loose, and they don't like they don't go down as they're wearing as the horse is wearing them.
Yeah.
They don't go over a joint, like, so it doesn't catch, so they can have full movement.
Yeah, so make sure it's not like preventing their movement. And that's another thing, you want to just make sure when you put the boots on that they can still bend their knee fully, bend their hock fully, bend everything fully. If your boots are too big or too small, what's the danger?
Rubs,
yeah. If they slip and they like start coming down, if they're too.
Can it cause like an injury to their
tendon
bone or something?
Yeah, so it can cause injuries to their legs if they're too tight. And why is it really important to keep your boots clean?
So they don't rub.
Yeah, so they don't rub. So quickly, because I know I'm running over. Let's all quickly run through. Emily, what bit do you use?
I use a loose ring snaffle with a French link.
Cool. When would you use a different bit?
For hacking and cross country.
Okay. Jess, what bit do you use?
A Dutch gag.
Okay, and when would you use a different one?
For cross country normally.
Okay. Annabelle, what about you?
I usually use a loose ring French link, but occasionally, if he's been quite strong, I'll use a Tom Thumb Waterford.
Okay. Tara, what bit do you use?
I just use a loose ring with a lozenge.
Cool. Eva, what bit do you use?
Knee string, lozenge, and then for jumping, Dutch gag.
Cool. Ottie, what bit do you use?
We change it a lot, but at the moment she's in a Dutch gag with a single link.
How come you change your bit a lot?
Because she gets very used to them.
Good, yeah. And that's a good thing to talk about in your test. Okay, Audrey, what bit do you use?
A loose ring, single jointed snaffle with rollers.
Cool. Scarlett, what bit do you use?
A single jointed Dutch gag.
Cool. Okay, Neve, how would you know if your horse is under or over bitted?
If they're obviously if they're getting really strong or like maybe like clamping down on their bit, you know they'd need a stronger or different, like maybe a roller bit. And over if it's like, I'm not sure about over.
Any ideas on how you know if it's over bitted?
If they're not
When they get quite
overbend and like they aren't generally uncomfortable when they
overbent,
quite short.
Do they get quite sharp?
Fighting against it. They can get sharp. They can just do the opposite. They can stop going forwards. If your horse starts stopping, it might be overbitted. We've talked about different boots. Romilly, how would you look after your boots?
After use, if they're like really like muddy and stuff, like put them in the washing machine.
Yeah,
or like
wash off, give them a clean.
if they've just got like sand on them, brush them off and then see if they need to be washed.
Good. And Mia, what bit do you use?
I use a universal bit, but Dutch gag for jumping.
Perfect. Okay, right. I have run very late, so I'm going to hand back over to Mother. Well done. That was really good. Just make sure you look at as many bits as you can and name all of the different parts of the bit.
Superb. Well done, everyone. That was a really good session. My goodness, whirlwind. We shall see you next week. Fantastic. Thanks very much, Sasha.
Thank you.
On to the next one.
Thank you.
Bye. Is it the second one? 3-0? Yeah, no, it's not.
Bye. Sorry. There's so much to go through on bits.
That's right. Just do less detail on bits on the other one. Right, I'm ending now.